just after the 4 or 5 minute mark. We're going to give some extra time for people to get in and get settled, especially since this is the first event that we are hosting in Circle, which we're going to talk about in a moment. I'm just going to pop open the chat here, and feel free if you're tuning in to post where you are tuning in from. And if you're just joining us, I was just mentioning that we're going to give it a few minutes. We'll probably start around the 4 or 5 minute mark. And in the meantime, I'm going to run down some questions for Camille here. Just some personal questions to get to know you while we're kind of waiting for people to get in and get settled. All right, Camille.
Hi.
I didn't share these questions with you beforehand, so here we go.
Yeah.
What is one thing that you can't stop talking about?
I will say Figma, most of all the auto layout and stuff like this, design system and Figma, kind of. It's super complex, so I cannot stop to find new way to do it better, kind of.
Love it. Love it. Well, I guess I'm going to give, you heard it here first, a sneak peek, but we're going to be, I'm going to be recording a podcast episode, Amy's podcast episode with Joey Banks, who used to work at Figma and now works at Twitter and does a lot with design systems. So if that's your jam, feel free to keep your ears open, I suppose.
Yeah. Sure.
All right, I got another question here for you. What is your favorite thing about your hometown? And tell us, where is your hometown? I don't want to make any assumptions by where you are today.
So I'm near Paris in France, and in Agnières-sur-Seine, for the people who know this town.
Mm-hmm.
And good question. I don't know. My house, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm more house person. Chilling at home.
Yeah, nice. I consider myself a bit of a homebody as well. All right, cool. Well, last question. We're just going to give everybody a couple more minutes here to get in, and then we'll kick things off with some housekeeping. Camille, what is a book that's on your to-be-read pile? Do you have a book that you're waiting to read?
Let me check. I have one, but I've made some cleaning, so.
Oh yeah, nice.
Let me check. Yeah. One I've really enjoyed recently is Beyond the Prototype. It's speaking a lot of how you are managing your design sprint, and most of all, how you are converting your design sprint into a real value for your product. So it's super interesting because it's not speaking about how you need to made your design sprint or whatever process you have. It's more how you are communicating your MVP, or how you are making sure what you have designed will go in production at the end. So yeah, super interesting. If some of you want to read it.
Me for sure. I haven't heard of that one, so thank you very much. I'm actually participating in a sprint right now in this week, so that is very timely. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in and for coming into our new event space called Circle, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. I want to welcome you to our third Spotlight event, and I'm super excited to be hosting Camille Diconstanzo. He's the head of product design at InVivo Digital Factory. And before I turn it over to Camille, I want to just give you a rundown of how we're going to spend the next hour or so together. So some quick housekeeping. For those of you that are new to the Maze community, Spotlight events are like live stream case studies. So they're designed to go behind the scenes with Maze users so that you can learn how they build better products with Maze. And I want to point you to kind of our environment here where we're streaming. This is kind of the very new and exciting platform that we are now in, which is called Circle. And I'll actually screen share with you just for a quick second and give you a very brief tour. Actually, I don't know if I am able to. Let's see. I'm not. Okay, here we are. So what I'll say is that you can head over to the welcome tab, and this is where you'll kind of be recommended to start. There's a start here section, so you can go ahead and check that out. There's a tour of the space, so you can kind of get a little bit of an understanding of what is Circle and how is it organized. And if you want to connect with others, so peers within the Maze community, you can move over to the members directory. It's in the top left-hand side of your screen, and you'll be able to see the directory building here. Now, this is the very first event that we're doing in Circle, and we just released this within the last couple of weeks. So very new here. We're going to have lots of new fun things that are going to be rolling out through Circle, but just to kind of get you associated with the platform, this is going to be kind of the Maze community hub. So if you have any feedback or questions about the space or anything about the community in general, feel free to send me or Rebecca a direct message. Last couple of things. Camille will present for about 25 to 30 minutes, and then we've got the last portion of the event reserved for question and answer. So leave your questions in the chat, and my Maze friends will surface them up to me at the end. And finally, the event is being recorded, so you can find this along with any of the past community events inside each one of the event track spaces on the left-hand side in Circle. So those recordings will be there for you after the fact. All right, Camille, take it away.
Good. So I'm sharing the proper screen. Should be fine. So welcome. We will speak about a lot of user testing protocol and stuff like this. For the quick overview, we are using Maze at InVivo Digital Factory since more than 2 years, I guess. So we faced a lot of stuff, bad and good, some of them. So InVivo Digital Factory is it's a digital factory from a big company which is called InVivo. InVivo is basically a big company in the agricultural world in France. So we are working with cooperative and farmers and a lot of company from this ecosystem. And the topic the product I want to be focused on in this presentation is Aladdin.farm, so Aladdin.farms. Basically, it's a marketplace for farmers in France, and it's a big complex because it's an ecosystem where the cooperative are administrating their marketplace directly with our tools. So most of our users are farmers. From cooperatives, farmers are complex users because depending of the season and the tasks you need to do in your field, then they can work more than 60 hours every week. They are living super far from Paris in this case, so it's complex to reach them. They also don't really trust people from big town because they're working a lot with trust. That's why the cooperative ecosystem is really powerful in France, because there is a lot of trust with their cooperative. So we need to earn the trust from them. And also a big main problem was they don't really like remote testing because they are not getting used to it. They are more in the field, not really in front of their phone or whatever. So the main problem was how can we reach them? How can we gather some data from them? I will a bit expose what we have done before, what was our process before Maze and before remote testing. Basically, we were spending a lot of time, some days to be exact, to went there, speak with them, and making tests directly in their computer at their farms. So it was super time consuming because you need to take an appointment. Most of the time it's for like the day after or 2 days after, so super fast, super fast appointment. You need to realize all your prototype because sometimes you are not really ready. Then you need to take the train, take a car or whatever, go in their town, meet them, drink a coffee, make a test, and all of that. It was most of the time spending at least 2 weeks if you take the prototype phase, and all of that for more, maximum 3 qualitative tests because we could be able to make 3 tests in one day if we are not spending so much time between each farmers. We could do 3. So we've done before was a bit more classical, 30-minute interview, 1 hour of test, of user testing with a really basic protocol. So as you can see here, screen with a task, there is a question where we can write on our own. Does the user did the task? Yes, no, or approximative. We can write some comments they were verbalizing, and some note about what we have seen, what he say, what we understand, and stuff like this. And at the end, when you have all of this answer or all of this data, we were dropping in a spreadsheet to have all the results and compare all the results. That was good in a sense, but not for everything. So we got a lot of feedback around every topics we can ask because we spend 1 hour and a half with the farmers. So you can speak. You can talk about a lot of topics, a lot of features, a lot of needs from them. And you are mixing interview and testing, so it brings a lot of data, a lot of qualitative data. It was easy to test, but not that much because you need to have your prototype ready. So to have a big prototype ready, it's super complex. So we got a lot of super messy prototype file. There is no consistency between the tests because each person are different. Each person are asking the question differently. And also, since you have a 30-minute interview in the first phase, it's complex to keep to keep no bias in the data. Also, one thing, since you have no consistency, you can compare the result, but it's not really accurate. So you need to take a step behind to be sure your data are okay enough. So yeah, at the end it was good in a sense, but a lot of corrupted data, a lot of wrong user data, and also the main problem was it was super time consuming. Spending a day driving across the country, it's quite nice, but it's a lot of time spent for not so much result. So then we discovered Maze and we choose to make a try to see if we can really reduce our process and also to have a more qualitative data and qualitative protocol and testing. So at the beginning, of course, we try to replicate all testing methods. So we face a lot of problem. And the first thing we try to do is taking the same prototype and dropping in it maze with super random, not random, but super big task that can involve 12 or more screens. So it was super time consuming to have a proper prototype and to have a proper maze file. Basically, we were spending at least 2 weeks to be ready. And even after 2 weeks, when you are making a test, you find new error or stuff like this. So you need to clean it again. So really complex. And the test with all of this complexity was always more than 30 minutes. 30 minutes for user tests is quite okay, but it has some trouble because, as I say, farmers are not really available alone in front of their computer during more than 30 minutes. It's not really possible for them. One big problem we got also was to compare the results, because since the task was super huge, since there is a lot of screen to pass by, we got a lot of indirect success during the mission task. So indirect success is you manage to get at the end of the task, but you pass by a way that is not programmed as a direct success. And since the task was something like add something to your cart or add this product to your cart, there is a lot of way to make indirect success. So it was really annoying to try to analyze the data. We couldn't, since everything is quite indirect success. You have to gather at the end all the data, see where the user make a loop of interaction or whatever. So at the end, we spend more than 2 weeks, and we have not so much data to gather. So we choose to make big changes and quite of making the base more clean. And to do that, we align all the team. So 10 product designer. I didn't say it at the beginning, but we are a studio team of product design with 10 designers, so they all have different backgrounds. And to clean the base, we just say, yeah, you have a question, you have something you want to learn, and what is it? Why do you want to learn this information? So why are you testing something? It's pretty simple, but if you write it down, it helps a lot to construct all your protocol. Then when you know why you need to make a test, you can try to understand how can you gather this information with a test. Maybe the test is not the proper answer to have this information. Maybe it's more an interview. Maybe it's more something else. So yeah, ask yourself why. How can you have this information, and then you can build your prototype. One big thing also is that we changed drastically the format. Now we are only doing 10-minute test and no more. And we are not doing 12-step mission anymore. So really basic, 4 or 5 screen with a direct task, and you can analyze what you say in the base of your protocol. Also, one thing to be sure, the format isn't much more than 10 minutes. One objective equal one test, and one tell equal one objective. So straight to the point, what you want to learn, create your testing protocol, create your prototype, and launch it. One tester also, I didn't mention it, but we find it much more efficient to have one user making 2 or 3 different tests of 5 or 10 minutes. They can do one in the morning, one in the evening, or whatever they can do at their rhythm. So we got much more results with this method. One of the main problem also, as I say, we are a team of 10 designers, so we are not asking and we are not creating our testing protocol in the same way. So how can we reduce all this bias of asking? How can we be sure the test I've done and the test someone else done can be compared? All of that passed by our testing methods that we curate templates of different type of testing we have. So in this case, it's written in French, but I will translate. How can you make an A/B test in Maze? How can you test a new functionality? How can you test an existing functionality? So we have all templates for these 3 use cases with specific questions, specific way to show the information of the user. And As example, we have also guidelines that we are sharing during, and we are continually evolving. For instance, you don't say, go to this page. You are saying, if you need to have this specific information, how will you do? So no direct question because it brings some bias in the test. And also the most important thing is that you don't name the indirection. For instance, don't say add this product to your cart because if the CTA is add to cart, it's pretty easy for you, the user, and it doesn't bring the real information. Does this is right or not? So it's a pretty simple example, but it can work with a lot of situation. Also, farming and agriculture reference are really specific. So we have a lot of trouble with wording and UX writing, for example. So it's pretty important from that part. And also, as I mentioned, how can you be sure you are comparing your results with the same scale and the same way to analyze it? So we took a lot of time to find a scaling that can fit our needs. So we choose to go with UMUX Lite. UMUX Lite is a user test scale, satisfaction scale that are based with 2 questions. It is easy to use from 1 to 7. 1 is completely disagree, 7 completely agree. And does it cover my need? Oh, it's not really a question. It covers my need, and from 1 to 7 also. So 2 simple questions that we add in each test to be sure we have this information from our user. Does they find it easy to use? Does it cover their needs? And with these 2 simple question, we can compare different feature, different way to design in this different feature. I was mentioning A/B test. We are doing a lot of A/B tests, and this scale help a lot to have a base of comparison. Of course, it's not the only thing you need to watch for that. So if you need to understand something, so what we are doing now is quite a process like this. Try to understand why. Do you have already this information in our documentation or whatever? Don't do tests just to make a test. You need to know what you want to understand and how can you understand it. Then you create your protocol in a different tool. You can use whatever you want, even paper. Then when your protocol is well written with the proper question, the proper structure, you can create your maze and just drag and drop all you need. Then we are sending the maze. We are waiting some results. We gather the results. We analyze all the questions. We analyze also all the success, the direct success and the indirect success. I didn't mention it, but since we reduce the format of our test, we got not so much indirect success now. When we have indirect success, it means something went wrong in the test or we failed somewhere. As an example, I will show you one of one of the tests where we were thinking of what the user wants based on what we understand before using Maze, what we see on the field, how like all the information we get before, and we try to replicate all what I've mentioned before, the methodology, the process, the UMUX scale also, to make this A/B testing between what we think is the proper feature and what we think it's not. And basically we were wrong, so it's super interesting. In this use case, it's from a navigation point. It's how the farmer want to go to a specific category of product. And basically, with this A/B test, we understand why we were wrong. In this case, the user want to have more information directly accessible and they were much more efficient. Like the time they are spending in the navigation were much more lower in the version B, for instance. So with this specific KPI, we try to express during the testing protocol. We understand what was the better solution, and we understand also why we were wrong before, because we didn't really try to ask ourselves, does the user want to be fast, or does the user want to be guided or anything? So in conclusion, if you want to use Maze, or if you want to have a clean protocol, a testing protocol, as I say, you need to spend less time in your prototype, because the much time you are spending in your prototype, the less time you are spending in your protocol, and to understand what you want to do and why you are doing it. Spend less time on the road. That's a big specific of our user. It's much more efficient now. We are sending the test during any day of the week. The farmer can do the test on early morning, like before 7 a.m., where they have some free time, and we are not obliged to take a train the day before, get there at 8 a.m. So spending less time on the road help us to have much more data at the end. Be sure you can compare the results between tests, because it's the main goal. You are doing tests to be able to improve your design, improve your product. So you need proper results that you can compare. And also, as I mentioned, be sure you are aligned with the availability of your users. All the users are different. In our case, we have much more results now. We are using remote testing and Maze because we are accessing to a lot more users than before. So I went a bit fast, but the takeaway of this presentation is, as I say, divide your mission into small steps, use a rate scale, understand why you are testing, make short tests, and standardize all your questions, standardize all your methodology, and make some template, for instance, to be sure everyone use the same base. And I guess that's the last one.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that presentation. Also, your deck, très magnifique. My French is terrible. It's a classic American problem. This was really interesting. I have some questions of my own if we want to kind of move into the question and answer segment. And for those of you in the audience, feel free to start populating some of your questions. It can be broader than perhaps exactly what we just presented on, but I've got a couple of questions to kick us off. You mentioned in the beginning portion when you're describing some of the context setting that your user base, especially being farmers, kind of in a collective mindset, have maybe some like where you have to do a lot of work to establish that trust. What were some of the things or techniques that you did to do that?
Yeah, good question. So we spend a lot of time with phone calls, a lot of time with the cooperative where they are working with. So in the cooperative ecosystem, there is a commercial that are working with farmers. They are trusting their commercial person. So we try to get as close as possible from the commercial. We spend days with them in their car, making the turn of all the farmers from their field. So yeah, we spend a lot of time with people of trust from farmers to get this trust from the farmers.
Yeah,
So,
that's That's
a
really,
lot of time spent to be sure they are trusting us.
yeah, totally. I'm looking over here. Actually, I'm going to pull my screen over so I can start queuing up some questions from the audience here. All right. Now, and feel free, you don't have to share your screen, or we can actually use the deck if you want to keep it up. There might be some questions that reference that. Apologies if I mispronounce your name, as you just heard my French also is
No
terrible,
problem.
so I'll do my best, everybody. Demosthenes asks, what did you mean by the corrupted data in the beginning when you were talking about doing the test before Maze?
Yeah. So basically, you are not like in the old way we are testing. It was 30-minute interview and then 1 hour test. So you can ask specific questions during the interview, bringing some misunderstanding or deep dive into some topic about how it is working right now and why. So the 30-minute interview before was super interesting, but was really not good to be sure the data we are gathering from the test are really clean. Like a big example is if the users say I cannot click on this item on my screen, of course you are next to him, so you're gonna explain a bit how it's supposed to work, or if it's a bug, what bug is he's facing, and then when he is doing the test, he will already have the answer, so it will be much more easier in the test part. So it's pretty basic, but you need to understand that if you are merging these two steps, your test will not be really clean, and the data will not be really clean. And yeah, you just need
That makes sense.
to be sure of that.
Yeah, it's like more interference and susceptibility to bias if you're kind of like interfering with the test in that way. I have another question here by Tracy. How did the farmers react to using maize?
So as I mentioned, the first one was not really well. A lot of our tests in the beginning was maybe three tasks, and then they will leave the test. So not super nice. And yeah, for example, 30 minutes is for us. For them, for the farmers, it could take 45 or 50 minutes. So it was super complex at the beginning. Also, some bugs were still there with the prototype, as I mentioned. So we got a lot of failing, a lot of bad feedback from the farmers and the cooperative also. So not super nice at the beginning. That's why we change everything to be sure it was efficient and we are not losing some data. So yeah, not well at the beginning. For example, what we have done also first was to make the test, the maze test, in directly next to the farmers to understand how they are interacting with the tool and be sure we are not doing wrong stuff. So yeah, to understand why they were not using it properly, we went back on the field with the maze prototype, the maze test, and directly next to them we will just drop the maze and say do the task, not really interacting with them, and like this that's how we improve all our process basically.
I love that the farmer, the user, really like influenced the protocol development and change. And it sounds like you uncovered things where like they might have an inclination to not spend too long on a test or too many series of questions. So scaling that back influenced like the future test that you were able to deploy. So that's a really interesting insight.
We kind of made some user tests about maze during field.
Yeah.
But actually, even today, we are still using maze with like in a more qualitative test where we are on Zoom or whatever tool. We are still using maze as a support to be sure all the questions are asked in the same way. So we are still doing one-on-one test with maze as a base.
Yeah.
typically.
I've heard a lot of teams have done some interesting, like in tandem things between Maze, either using Maze as somewhat of like that kind of research guide, kind of to facilitate a moderated session or interview, or if it's done between like a split of tests where you'll do some in a moderated session between watching the Maze test go through, but you're on Zoom, and then another portion of the test out to like in an unmoderated capacity. So yeah, it's really interesting. I have another question here. We've got a bunch filing in. This one is by Ryan. Ryan would like to know, how are you currently handling prototypes that require information from like input fields or text fields?
Good question. As I mentioned, if we need this kind of information, maybe we will do a maze with our farmers directly in a Zoom or whatever. So yeah, we are mixing the test, or we are evolving our process depending of what information you want to know. So yeah, I'm not sure I'm answering the right question. So, but if we need information specifically about some input, like a research, like in the research tab, what the people want to write or whatever, maybe we will not use Maze, or maybe we will use more the I don't remember how it's called in Maze, not the prototype one, but the more
The discovery
forms,
side.
the discovery, and we will use mission like tree test or whatever.
Yeah, that's
So
actually a good call. That would
yeah,
be a smart way to collect info.
so we are really mixing. If we need an information, we will try to understand how we can have this information. Most of time it's with Maze. Most of time is with half remote and one-on-one test. But in this case, I guess we will just do one-on-one test with to have this specific information.
Yeah, something we're keeping, kind of our sights on as far as like in the prototype being able to collect information from, like interactive components and things. So maybe these things will develop,
Maybe.
differently in the future. Sophia asks, how do you recruit your users to take Maze tests? So what is that process like?
So here I really spoke about one of our products. Farmer are super complex to reach. So we have our own database with as I say, we gather all this list of users with the cooperative, with the commercial from the cooperative. So we spend a lot of time to gather all of this testing user. Also, maybe some time from some communication we send to our user. So if you want to help us to improve the product, just take 5 minutes to answer us. So for farmers, it's our own database. And we have different other products where we are using different platform for hiring person. Since we are in France with French person, French speaking user, we cannot use the recruiting user from Maze. So we try different tool, different startup in France that can help us to reach some user. So yeah, our own database with our own specific email send with the brand Aladdin. And other products are more directly with different platform of user recruitment.
Nice. Okay, we've got another question. This one's from Mark. For the standardized question, does this meet your needs that you referenced? How do you make sure that the answer fits the scope of the test?
Uh,
I'm thinking through that one. I think that's in reference to just making sure that there's some level of context so that maybe when the
yeah.
answer comes in that it did meet the need. Like the user is responding to the right need, perhaps.
Yeah, so we have a lot of we are not going straight into the mission and the task mission. We always have some context and question to be sure we understand what is the need before, and then we are making the task, the mission task, to be sure we are not throwing something that is useless. So I'm not sure it explains everything, but yeah, we try to be sure we drop the context, we try to understand what they need, and then we are making a task. Maybe the task will be completely out of target. It happens sometimes, but at least we have the need before. Yeah, so.
Yeah, so the question's not asked in isolation, basically. Yeah. Great. We have a few more questions here. We got Sienna asks, were the farmers you tested with current users of the product, or did they take your tests completely unfamiliar with InVivo?
Both. At the beginning, the platform wasn't released for all the farmers, so they were not users. It was more new feature kind of protocol. And now it's much more, yeah, almost all are user of the platform. So yeah, both. At the beginning, people that were not using the interface at all, and now people that are used to it. So we have different feedback. Stuff we test 1 year ago are not the same, and the results are not the same as stuff we are testing now, because the user and the farmer get used to some interaction. If it's an interaction they are doing every day, or maybe not every day, but every time they are in the website, if you change something, it will completely lose them. So we have to be careful with that kind of evolution.
Interesting. Yeah, good question. Max asks, farmers are not a classic tech savvy profile. Were there issues getting them used to going through the maze test for the first time? So maybe specifics that you found that they were hung up on or experienced challenges with?
So farmers are really different, one from each other. Some are really tech heavy. The agriculture is super high tech. If you know how and how it's work, it's super tech heavy. All the machines are connected. There is some drones that can help you to improve your seed production and stuff like this. So some of the farmers are super happy, and yeah, and
well exposed to tech, it sounds like.
Yeah,
with drones.
and most of them are really not. So we have to take care of both. The person who want to have super fast interaction, like Apple user or stuff like this, and the one that buy a phone last year to contact their cooperative. So yeah, it's super complex because we need to be sure both of these drastically different user use the tool in the same way and reach the same goal. So at the beginning, even sharing a screen in Zoom was super complex. For example, the commercial from cooperative, we still have trouble with some of them. We are spending maybe 15 minutes to set up the call. Also in Zoom, there is the bar on the top that can be super annoying during user test, that can hide half of your interface. So yeah, we got a lot of trouble mixing phone call to solve problem in their computer to be sure we can make a test. So super complex, but at the end, Maze is quite simple to use, kind of. So we don't have that much problem with Maze. The more problem we have with Maze, it's with small screen and stuff like this, but it's more from our fault. And the prototypes that are well not connect, If there is a bug in the prototype, all these kind of users that are really not familiar with anything, they just shut down the website. So yeah, it's not the simple way. You need to be super picky when you are building your maze. Be sure it's simple to use, simple to understand, and simple to interact. Yeah.
It's interesting to hear about the specific context and nuance within your industry and within your user base. I have a follow-up question to that. When you're saying like you have to consider kind of the spectrum of users, the power users, for example, versus maybe more of the less familiar part of the audience. Does that mean that design decisions typically get met like in the middle, somewhere of an average?
It depends of the feature. I cannot say we are in the middle because most of time we don't want to miss that part of users. So if it's a main feature that will make a lot of money, because we are still an e-commerce website in B2B, but still. So we cannot miss this kind of user. Also farmers, as I said, it's a B2B website and B2B product. So one user, it's a huge loss basically in the system. So we cannot just say whatever we are doing something in middle, both will be happy. No, it's not true. You will lost the part that is not fluent with technology. And the one who are tech heavy, they don't care. They are using the website to be sure they can make their production growth, be sure they can rule their company. Basically, farmers
has downstream
have
effects.
company. Yeah. So we always we try to always be sure the not really not really tech heavy farmers can use our product. It's more like this.
Really
At
interesting
least
constraints. I know we were
80,
talking in the
90% at least.
yeah, really interesting. I know we were talking in the backstage before the event about just this industry overall. Yeah.
Also, something interesting about farmers, they are using a lot of mobile, but as I mentioned, they are working a lot with trust. So, for instance, you can make more funny stuff in mobile because they will not buy a product from their mobile. They will much more buy from their computer, their desktop computer. So there is room to make funny stuff, even if we are not really doing that. But more in mobile, and then in the desktop, just focus on be efficient and effective. Also, farmers ask for that. They want to spend the less time possible it's not like us. It's not like on Amazon. You are searching for anything. You need something, and you want to be as fast as possible to have it directly in your field.
Yeah, I love that. It's very clear that you know all of these very specific elements of your users. It really shows how much it influences decisions there.
That's why Maze was super powerful, because we can understand how much people spend in each screen, in each task. One thing we are really looking at is the first click and the second click and stuff like this. Because if we want to improve our efficiency, it's really all of this data that we are going to try to understand after the test, and it's all of that data we want to document at the end.
Totally, yeah. Coming up to the last like 5 or 10 minutes of our time together, I've got a last couple of questions. EK asks, were there any farmers who required accessibility measures to perform the maze tests? And if so, what was the process?
Good question. We try to be as accessible as possible in our website, but in the prototype, except the color and the font size, I'm not sure we can do much more. So We are spending a lot of time to be sure every stuff we are doing will be as accessible as possible. Also, as I mentioned, farmers don't have a super nice screen. They are working in front, in the middle of nothing. So all outdoor with the iPhone. So you need to be sure all the main interaction are super contrasted. All the text and proper information are super visible. So yeah, for all that design, accessibility, we can handle with the prototype. We are trying to get as close as possible as the final result. But we cannot do much more deep stuff like navigate with your keyboard or stuff like this. Or I don't know how, at least.
I think that's just kind of highlights like accessibility broader than like maybe what we traditionally think of as accessibility, and puts it more into like situational accessibility, right? Where like you're outside, that's an accessibility need to understand like what that looks like. Like accessibility extends to if you're using your phone and you have your arms full of groceries and you're trying to open the door. Like these are contextual accessibility things.
Yeah, it's not the disease one, but
yeah, it's interesting. Last question for you, Camille. David asks, how did you arrive at the scale of 7? It's easy to use, it covers my needs.
Yeah, I didn't mention
it. Yeah, I'll save the second part of this question.
Yeah, I kind of rushed the presentation, so it's my fault. So why 1 to 7? Basically because we want something that is a bit deeper. So from 1 to 7, you have 3 negative answer, 3 positive answer, and a neutral one. We find it the more efficient to compare, and for what we have seen with our user, it's easier to position yourself in the scale from 1 to 7. We try 1 to 5 also, but people tend to be never people never make 7. It's like this. So they are always at 6. And in this case, if you are in a scale from 1 to 5, you are always with a maximum of 4. So yeah, we just want to have more deep projection about the scale. That's why we use 1 to 7.
What do you consider when you get those neutrals?
Neutrals is a fail for us.
Gotcha.
It means we doesn't, as I say, we want to have the better product as possible, as everyone, I guess. So we are trying to target 6 or 5 or 6 at least.
Gotcha. Yeah. So like in a traditional NPS situation, that would be considered like a detractor, anything that's not those top 2 numbers. Very interesting. Well, thank you so very much for joining and for walking us through that presentation and through the thorough answers to the audience questions. This has been really engaging and super interesting to learn from you, Camille. So thank you very much for being with us. Absolutely awesome presentation. I want to thank everybody for also tuning in. Thank you so much for attending. We will be sending out a maze test to get your feedback just on the event and your first time in Circle for the maze community. We're really looking forward to your thoughts. And yeah, with that, I'm going to give the last 5 minutes back into everybody's Wednesday. Thank you so much for tuning in and enjoy the rest of your week. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.